2025 has come to an end. Happy New Year, guys! But I want to take this moment to kind of look back at how was 2025 for BiteMe Games, the studio. I think it's been our third year now that we've been doing game dev in general, and the second year that we've actually been incorporated in all of that. Are we doomed? Are we doing well? How is the future looking for us? How much money did we earn this year? And many more questions will be answered in this video. I'm not going to dive in with the numbers straight away. I just want to make this a bit less of a numbers focused video and talk a bit more about everything else that happened as well. So let's begin with the most important part of running a game dev studio, and that is actually releasing games. We released 3 games this year, which is less than I had expected, less than I had hoped for, but it's still 3 games. So let's dive into those. The first game that we released is immediately kind of a half one, and it is back on February, I think end of February, we released My Virtual Friend. My Virtual Friend is a desktop idler and virtual pet game that I made kind of out of spite, just to learn game development and make something for myself. I made a first version, I remember, 3 days before New Year 2025, basically. I submitted the game to itch, the first prototype version that I had made, December 31st at 10 p.m. or something. And then I was like, okay, it's been enough grind for this year, let's go outside and enjoy the fireworks. And then it got pretty good traction on itch, so I was like, hey, I think I can make this a small scoped little game, kind of to keep seeing it as a learning exercise for me personally, because I'm not a good programmer or all of that, to kind of do the start to finish thing about game development. Because I felt like it was also a good learning exercise, because I talk about all of this game development stuff, but I have more of a supportive role, or had more of a supportive role in our studio back then, where I didn't know anything how Unity worked, in terms of structure and classes and how everything kind of tied together. So this project was also for me to kind of learn in that regard. We got positive signals, so I was like, okay, let's throw this onto Steam. This is where I think the first problem went wrong. It's a whole development story. Basically, Steam was 100% convinced that we were going to have nudity in our game, which we didn't, but then was a back and forth to get store page approved. We joined Steam Next Fest with that game. I think it got us a few hundred wish lists. I think 1,000 wish lists, maybe even. I think 800 wish lists. I'm not exactly sure. And then we just chipped it afterwards. To this day, it's our worst performing game in terms of sales, but I am kind of okay with that, because it's also the game that we put the least amount of man hours into, basically. I worked first on that prototype, and then we spent a little bit more of time, I think 2 weeks, professionally polishing it up, adding some more characters and all of that, and then we shipped it. I think right now it's a little bit over $1,000 in gross revenue, which isn't great, but if you look at the time, effort put into it, and then also the fact that I still learned stuff about it, I can still live with that result. It's still one more game under our belt. There are people who do enjoy this game as well. It has decent reviews, although it hasn't gotten a giant scale. Most of our audience is in Russia. Shout out to my Russians who are watching, although I don't think there's that much of an overlap. Russia and China were the big ones. And I kind of just used it to get better at game development itself. I think a good thing that I did there was having demos on both itch.io and Steam, and then updating them with a weekly cadence. I learned a lot of stuff from that game. And then we get to the second game that we released. That was at the end of March. We released Overtime Anomaly. This is a real proper game, so to say. But we started developing on this game back in December of 2024. It's an anomaly horror game, but kind of a different style than your Exit 8s and whatever. I've made videos about all of these games, by the way, so if you want to dive into the numbers and more of my learnings. The game overall was, I think, pretty okay. The biggest problem was that we were kind of unclear in our player onboarding, basically, and we also didn't really know what the game design was going to be where we got this kind of weird mix of an Exit 8 style game with anomaly hunting, but then we also added that you needed to report anomalies and you need to identify different categories. You had to do different tasks along the way, kind of a Five Nights at Freddy's styles, and then you do it 6 nights in a row. I think it had some cool ideas, and I think overall I would say that the game is pretty okay, but it has those few flaws that I talked about, like the onboarding, and generally people do really like the vibes of the game and what the game concept is. There's just a few frustrating points, and you see that also in reviews. I think it's still at 85% or something. It's not a horribly reviewed game, but it's a game that looking back now, I'm okay, I could have done better, or especially now with what I know now, I could have done better. This game, earnings-wise, was about $5,000 or something. This was a game that was not break-even for us. We spent 4 months with 2 people working on that game, so then yeah, $5,000 kind of gross revenue didn't really make sense. So we were, okay, back to the drawing board, and that led us to our third game, which is Kyoto Anomaly, which is the game that I think to this date I'm the most proud of, where we saw, okay, these are all the game design issues that we made with Overtime Anomaly. Let's just simplify this game, because that's what people wanted, make it more of a true Exit 8 or linear style game. and let's just focus on doing that one thing as good as possible. So we put a lot of attention on like the level design, on making like voice acting. We improved the UX for Anomaly games, I would say, in a good amount as well. And we released that game 2 months later, but we only worked on it for 5 weeks, I would say, where the last 3 weeks were just kind of, we sent it out, we let content creators do some of the marketing for it, and then we shipped it. The past few, like the final few weeks before release, we didn't really work on this anymore. We had already started moving on to the next game. This game has, at this point, I think pretty much outsold Overtime Anomaly, and it's also a game that has way better ratings than Overtime Anomaly. I think right now it's still sitting at 98% positive, which is something that I'm very happy with. I think it is a game that also I really enjoyed making as well, maybe because of the environment, maybe just because of the almost simplicity, but I really enjoyed making that game. And those are our 3 games releases, and I would honestly say that the first half year of 2025 for us was a very good, well, first half basically. We had decent earnings, we were releasing games, we had good YouTube views as well, because that is an important part. And after Kyoto Anomaly got released, basically, it kind of went downhill for us. We're not doomed, not yet, but there was definitely a shift in, I don't know, like productivity maybe, or just end results that we got, where we didn't release any other games anymore. And what we did instead kind of is this very miserable way of canceling 7 or something games in 2025, even more, where we start working on games, we think, okay, these are going to be good games, and then at some point, it's not happening. I have a list here. I'm not going to go too deep into all of them, but basically, what are the games that we cancelled in 2025? Starting off, Magical Girl Guardians. We cancelled this one back in January after we got a lot of backlash from you guys, and that forced us to kind of reevaluate and be like, can we make this game actually visually strong enough for what we want? The answer for that is no. Do we have money for artists? No. And guys, it's really not that easy to like, oh, just work together with someone. It's a lot more pain and misery than you think. So we ended up canceling that. Then we started prototyping, or like when I say we, just for context, we're 3 people in our studio. You have me, I do like YouTube administrative stuff, and then like also general game design, level design, and like supportive role. And then we have 2 programmers who kind of independently work on their own games that they're product owner of, and then I help them whenever they need. One of our developers started prototyping on the game we called Artifacts of the Condemned, which was, I don't know, like kind of a MOBA manager. I don't exactly even know what it was anymore, because this was 8 months ago. We had a scope that was like, okay, I think there's actually a prototype still available. Maybe I'll link it down below if you're really interested in it. But we realized, okay, the game could have good bones, but it would require us to kind of hard commit onto this for 1 year, 1.5 years, and whatever. And realistically, 1, we didn't have the resources to do that, and 2, we also didn't even know if we were going to want to work on this game for 1.5 years. Maybe we could want to work on this game for 4 months, but I don't think anyone saw themselves working on that same game for that long of a time. So we ended up just being like, yeah, this is maybe a good game, but it's not a good game for our studio right now, our skills, and the kind of what our interests are lying at. So we started working on another game called Age of Rot. This was a first-person Call of Duty Zombies kind of style game, but set in like a medieval setting, basically. So you had swords and bows and arrows and magic and all of that. 1 to 4 player co-op. And this was once again a project that kind of died. The way I describe it is a death by 1,000 cuts, where we had all of these very small setbacks where we started with the original vision, and then we had to keep making compromises to get things working. Like, for example, we wanted the game to be first person only. Then because of like multiplayer animation stuff and the fact that first and third person animations are different and we couldn't make them align and whatever because we are not animators, meant that we had to shift the game to third person, which was like, okay, I can still live with it. It's not my ideal vision. But then we started running into like more issues, once again, with animating for the most part. We had some netcode stuff. We had a bunch of different things. Also stupid stuff like we wanted to get capsule art commissioned. And I had this very specific art style for capsule art that I wanted, more of like a realistic style. We couldn't get a single capsule art quote back for like under $1,500. And it's like, once again, that is not something that we could do right now. And all of those things kind of killed the momentum on that game, killed the vibes of the game. And we just didn't want to work on it anymore. And at that point, we kind of were like, yeah, time to cut our losses and move on to the next thing. We moved on to a few prototypes in between then, like a roguelike RTS. But that one, I think we never even showed on the internet because it was just like... It took some while for us to figure out, okay, what's the hook going to be? The hook was going to be that you're a necromancer trying to kind of invade the world and claim it all. We felt, once again, priorities-wise, this was, again, a large-scope game. We can't do large-scope games right now because our studio simply can't sustain a large-scope game. We cannot put our eggs into the one basket for 1 year because we're not earning enough money for that. We'll talk about money, like I said, in a second. We started working on a maid cafe simulator game. This one maybe you've heard me talk about at some point. And whilst, honestly, we haven't even inside of our team said, okay, this game is cancelled, it's kind of on a weird point in development where we spent 5 months on it. We never really got the momentum that we wanted nor needed. And at this point, we're kind of overcome by events, is I think the best way to say it, where what we once had was still like kind of a novel idea, and then especially like half a year ago, Playway style simulators were still more popular, I would say. Now they have very much shrunken in general popularity. And we were still honestly kind of far away. Once again, we were running into problems with also needing to get custom art pieces commissioned for like our cute maid cafe style food. And whilst sure we had some budget, once again, the costs were looking to get pretty high to a point that we probably were going to be bleeding dry the company if we wanted to hard commit on it, and then maybe we wouldn't even have a good result of it anymore. So we started looking more and more, okay, what are some quick wins we could do? We had the idea for a rage game, a hard carry, which I actually live streamed some of the like level design on. It was a multiplayer co-op game where you had like a stretcher, basically. It's the game Stretcher Man, but then actually good is the way I describe it. So last year, Unicycle Pizza Time released together or at the same time as another rage game called Stretcher Man, which was a single player Unreal Engine slop game that is at like 48% positive reviews or something. The developer never updated it, never released a new game. So I felt like, hey, it's a fair shot now, I think, to reimagine this game as a better setting where you're playing it either solo or with two people, and like you control a stretcher with a body in the middle. You have to go and navigate, like do some paramount and rescue and make sure they don't get dropped, basically. I think still this is a very solid game idea, but multiplayer netcode physics is just misery. It's kind of what it ran into, where we were running into this problem where a developer kind of got stuck in Groundhog Day for 3 days, where every day he starts up his computer, he tries something with the physics, it doesn't work. At the end of the day, git reset, do it again next day. That kind of absolutely kills your motivation and your passion to do anything. So after 5 weeks of that, we had to be like, yeah, I don't think this is going to happen right now. And we once again have started to look into something else. I think there's more prototypes that I'm even forgetting about, but that's kind of the second half of the year for us has just been making a lot of prototypes, or like even going to like early pre-production and things like that. And then just there's problems and we can't really put the game all the way because we realize that it's not a good fit for the studio, or it's not something that we can actually pull off. Probably I'm going to make a whole video diving a bit deeper into like all the reasons why we cancel games and whatever. So if that's something that you're interested in, be sure to head down below and subscribe. And along with all of those cancellations basically came some more problems that made the second half of 2025 for us not a great time. There's no better way to say it. This was, I don't know really what happened, but it's something that kind of hit me personally very hard, and that is our YouTube views. Our YouTube views has been down a lot, basically. I think less than half of what they were at in the first half of 2025. There was like some problem. I don't know if it was a problem. I don't think it ever got like cleared up or whatever. But back in August, I don't know if you guys remember this, there was a lot of like online creator outlash towards YouTube because of this thing called like the viewpocalypse, where nobody really knew what was going on, but everyone's views were kind of just dropping suddenly. And then someone was like, it's because of adblock views not being counted anymore. And then someone else was like, it's because of this other thing, or it's like rewatches or something. I don't know what it was, but there were two big problems. One, that adpocalypse or like viewpocalypse kind of thing happened right at Gamescom, where we were doing daily videos. I had a whole sponsor lined up. We got paid a pretty decent amount of money to go to Gamescom and to make a lot of very cool videos. Videos that I think to this day are some of the best stuff that we've made the entire year. But nobody watched them. These videos got like 3,000 views, less than 3,000 views, which was, it is still abnormally low for our channel, and there wasn't really anything I could do about this. Second problem is, of course, these was also sponsored videos. The sponsor did not get the views that they were looking for, so most likely they also will not be sponsoring these kinds of events next year. And guys, Germany is very expensive to go to Gamescom, so I don't think I can like front that myself. And at some point people were like, it's fixed now. It never kind of recovered for us. Our channel has been in a slow decline in terms of views for the past 4 or 5 months. And we tried stuff like, for example, doing short form content, which you may have seen, which gives like a temporary spike in just viewers and subscribers, but it, views mean nothing at the end of the day. Views don't pay rent is kind of the way to say it. And especially like short form views, they never really converted into long form views. They never converted into our Patreon and all of that basically. So we've been trying some stuff. I'm gonna try some more stuff. I'll talk about it at the end, what we're gonna change for 2026. But that also was like kind of a bummer. And for me especially, because I put a lot of time and effort into these YouTube videos, or I'd like to think so. Also, I took a step back because it was just making me kind of depressed, because all of the stuff that I was doing, no matter what I did, I would be like, oh, this is a really good video. I know this is a topic people are gonna like for example, marketing or whatever. And then you release that video and nobody watches it. Cricket sounds. And I mean, not nobody watches it. It still gets like 3,000 views. But if you look at what we used to get with half the subscriber crowd, basically, it still kind of sucks. And it made me think of like, am I washed? What are we doing and all of that? And kind of made me realize, should I keep doing YouTube? Should I focus more on making games? But making games, as you can see from all the prototypes that we've canceled, also wasn't really a good solution. I think I'm gonna keep doing YouTube. I had a period where I was also like, yeah, I think I'm gonna shut down the Patreon, because we were churning a lot on our Patreon as well, where no new members were really joining. Maybe this is my time to give a shout out to our Patreon, where I used to upload, I mean, we're trying out some new formats on there as well, but I think it's really cool. I used to upload one extra video every week, kind of more of an in-depth kind of video, or behind the scenes, or bonus tier lists, or just like a 1 hour long, like almost guide on trailers or things like that. But I think at the end of the day, you know, people don't want to pay for subscriptions. What's our Patreon? It's a subscription. And it's like, should I just have packaged this up in a course and called it a day? Maybe. I tried to make the Patreon work. I think it's still kind of working for us, but if you look at where our Patreon came from, once again, back in June, July, and then where we are at now, I think we've churned about 40% of our total monthly revenue on that regard as well. So game sales, well, there haven't been any game sales. YouTube views are down, which means sponsors are down, and Patreon is down. It hasn't been a pretty second half of the year for us. So let's talk a little bit about our financials. Back in 2025, we earned $27,000 gross revenue from Steam. That is up 38% from last year, but as I said before, we're a 3-man studio. It's not really ideal. We have other ways of revenue, of course, such as our Patreon and our YouTube and some other like smaller things, like we do affiliate, but it doesn't really sell a lot. The total revenue that our company earns in 2025 was 49,279 euros. We're based in Belgium, so our accounting is done in euro. Right now, that converts to about $58,000 that we made in 2025. That's not like ideal. Like, we are not thriving, definitely, but I do want to say that we have been able to pay ourselves out, both me and the other guy who is full-time in our studio, basically, every single month. Last year, I didn't pay myself out for most of the time, basically. I was still coasting on my savings. Now we are able to barely sustain ourselves. Some months, depending on if we get like a sponsor or like some better game sales, we kind of make a little bit of profit. Some months we don't make as much profit. We talk about this on our Patreon as well. There's a monthly business updates video that I upload on there, where I just take you through my entire Excel spreadsheet, basically, of why do we earn money, where does our money go to, and what are like our plans for the next month, basically. So if you like numbers, I would say go and take a look at that as well, which I still think is good. But on the other hand, we kind of still want to do way better, of course. I think one other thing that I noted down here on my notes, basically, that kind of fucked us over, it's not like the only reason why we didn't earn as much money as we wanted to, of course, is that we're based in Europe. We work in euro, basically. United States dollar has been taking a gigantic nosedive in the last year, basically, or at the start of 2025. Our Steam payouts were basically $1 was almost €1, because I think $1 was 0.97 euro. It has dropped down to 0.85 at this point, like 85 euro cents is $1, which for all of our Steam payouts are in US dollar, and then also all of our sponsor payouts are in US dollar for the most part. Has, once again, you know, your income kind of gets slashed by 12-13%, which over a course of $20,000 does start to add up. That's an extra month of paycheck, basically, that we are kind of losing out on. Can we solve this? Not really. That's just the way economics work, I guess. We just have to work around it. I think I just sent my accountant, who was like, yeah, this is how much you made. I was like, yeah, we just have to make more money, right? That's all there is to do. Now, I want to not just be only Debbie Downer here. I want to talk about some of the good things that still happened. I think I've made this year, once again, a whole bunch of great videos that maybe didn't get the love they deserve, but I still want to give kind of a quick shout out to them, basically, because I think we keep making good videos. These events like Gamescom, for example, yeah, they cost a lot of money. They need sponsorships, but they also allow us to make videos that is not just a guy sitting in his bedroom. I mean, right now I'm not sitting in a bedroom at all, but I kind of wanted to step away from that kind of problem. I want to distance myself, or like make it more clear that BiteMe Games is not just another white dude sitting in his bedroom talking about like how he's making a quirky meme game. I want to be more professional and kind of have that bit of a merge between those two. So going to events like BitSummit or Gamescom, yeah, we need to find sponsors, or I kind of just paid BitSummit out of pocket in my case. They allow for very good videos. We just need to find a way to like maybe make it more sustainable in the long term, but I think there were really good ones. Maybe some videos that I want to shout out. One that we did at BitSummit was where I interviewed Andrew, the guy who's making Alpine Lake. He's just a very normal guy, but these are kind of the interviews that you don't get, where it is people who are kind of like moderately successful and they all have their own way of succeeding in game dev basically, but they're not like sexy enough to show up on like, you know, the big game dev podcast. It's the best way I can describe it. I want to give more space basically to people who wouldn't go on a podcast any other way basically. There are interesting things in there. You know, they're just harder to do. I really like the one with Alpine Lake. We also did one with Critical Reflex, although Critical Reflex is in some hot waters right now, so I don't know. I think the information in that video was still pretty good. I think some other videos that I did, like for example when I went to Gamescom and I was able to sit down with the Steam team. I've spent like 3 or 4 hours sitting next to people from Steam and kind of one-on-one talking to them about the future of the platform. There's a lot of cool stuff coming to Steam that I also just can't talk about yet, but then I make a video about it and it just doesn't really seem to get that much interest. And I'm like, guys, do you want to sell your games? Because Steam is kind of the only way. So that's a video as well that I highly suggest, if you haven't watched it, to watch as well. I think I also started my villain arc this year where I'm like, oh, your games aren't good enough. I think there are some good lessons in it as well, that for me as well, where the start of 2025, I was like, okay, I'm going to take myself more serious as a game developer, more professional. Instead of treating game dev as a hobby, I want to treat it as a professional thing. I want to ask myself, is this what a professional would do more? And it kind of also led me onto this villain arc where I get like games of you guys submitted, and honestly, most of the time, you're like, oh, why is this not selling? And it's just because your games are not good enough. And it's a very good video, I would say, that hopefully is kind of eye-opening, and I want you guys to treat yourselves more like pros as well instead of hobbyists, even if you're just doing it as a hobby. I think also, like I said, in terms of W's, Kyoto Anomaly was definitely a game that for me was very instrumental, monumental, impactful, whatever you want to say. I really enjoyed seeing the result of that game as well. It was a game that I enjoyed working on. It didn't really have any like giant setbacks throughout development either. It had a good end result. When content creators played that game, they always enjoyed it as well. And it kind of made me feel once again of like, hey, I can actually make good games again, which is very nice. And then lastly, like I said, events like BitSummit and Gamescom are always highlights for me. Also because this year was kind of the first year that I went to these events and got kind of like recognized. This is the point where I'm starting to get famous, I feel, within like certain game dev spheres. I mean, 50,000 subscribers is not nothing anymore, so thank you for those who are still watching. But it is very different to like interact with people through comments, and then just having people who have like a big boot, who have a publisher, who maybe kind of are like too successful to comment almost, and like spend time on like watching every video and joining the Discord and whatever, still be like, hey, are you Marnix? I really enjoy your content. And then they have like $1 million game behind them. And I'd like to think that I kind of still was a little tiny part of what made that game possible, basically. And that is something that I personally get a lot of joy from as well. So what are we going to change for 2026? I wanna, you know, this is the year, this is the point where we all say like, oh, these are my New Year's resolutions. I want to build BiteMe Games into $1 million studio. I think that is kind of what I've been thinking about more. I'm sitting in an empty office right now. Maybe one day this will be our office and I can fill it up with like, I have dreams, basically. But we are not making those dreams come to life with 50,000 euros a year. We need to earn more. I think this year is the year where kind of, you know, we've been doing this for a while now. We're getting older. I got married in 2025 as well. At some point, you know, you want to buy a house. Not just me, also the other people working on our studio. Maybe want to move out of their parents. And, you know, it's kind of growing up and we need to take more responsibility. I'm not just a kid playing around anymore. I'm 25 now, and I think we just need to treat this more like a business. Maybe even more. And maybe some of you guys will not like that. Maybe some of you guys are going to be like, yeah, I liked it way more when you were humble and whatever. And I'd like to think that I'm still humble. I also do think that I have a kind of, you know, responsibility, not just for myself, but the people around me in my life, especially the ones who decided to go into this game dev adventure with me. You may not see them on camera, but I see them almost every day. I interact with them almost every day, and I just want them to have a good life as well. How is this gonna pan out? I don't know exactly yet. Like, I have some ideas. We're probably gonna see that in the next year. One thing that I will do as well, that is part of my plan to get to $1 million, basically, is putting more effort on the YouTube. Like I said, views on YouTube have been down for a while. I dropped down to 1 upload a week, basically, I think May, June, something like that, because I was also kind of running out of ideas to talk about. I kind of didn't know anymore what new I could bring to game development. We dropped it down to 1 video a week, and it's also like, yeah, I can't complain about getting less views when I'm only uploading half as much as well. I've been, for the past few months, like I think last 2 months, I've been having a lot more ideas in terms of great videos that I think are really solid. So I want to record more of those. I'm planning to go back to 2 uploads every week, basically from starting now. I hope you guys are gonna keep watching them and just keep tagging along on this journey, because I think I have a lot of interesting things to talk about. And yeah, that also means, you know, that we do need to look at increasing revenue for our runway, which may mean a little bit more of like short-term thinking, which is not ideal. I know you want to think about the 5-year plans, but as it is right now, we don't have a 5-year plan. There's no point in a 5-year plan. We need to survive the first 6 months because we have some runway, but every month we are slowly bleeding a little bit out more. We built up a little bit of a nest, but it's like half a year that we don't have to worry too much about what we do. Is half a year enough to bet everything on one single game? I don't think so. I don't want to like put like every single dollar that we have into like a Hail Mary project. I kind of want to find something more sustainable. And that may mean also doing things like, you know, monetizing live streams or Patreon or any other way, basically. Maybe I'll throw out a course because, once again, it's been 3 years. I think I've learned some stuff. I don't know. That's kind of where I want to go for 2025. Doesn't mean that we're going to stop making games. My goal is still going to be to probably release 6 games in 2026. Kind of funny, 6 games in 2026. I think the goal for 2025 was 5 games. I think we can release those games. I think we can release good, small games. I think what we need to do as a studio is get better at not canceling games. Either finding a way in advance to identify what are the weak points and work around that and just find a way to work with it, basically, or simply don't throw in the towel that quickly on projects. I think that is another thing. If a project is going bad, just find a way to still salvage it, to still get a decent result in a moderate time frame, which may not be the final vision, but still just not to waste so much time on prototypes. That's kind of the thing that pains me when I was writing the script and I was like going through the list of like, what are all the games that we canceled again in 2025? It pained me because it feels so wasteful. We wasted 2 people's life basically for 6 months without much to show for it. And some of the prototypes, like I could still drop on Israel, but even then there's not much value in it. Yeah, we've learned a bit more, we've gotten more experience, but at some point you don't want experience. You want to be able to afford food without having to worry too much. I still don't regret quitting my job, my previous job, my high-paying one, but I do think, yeah, I'm just getting older now. And I think that's kind of where it comes down to when you get older. I mean, the BiteMe audience is on average like 30, 35 years old, so you guys maybe relate to this more than I do. At some point you grow up, at some point your mindset changes, you have to think differently, basically. Things impact more like long-term as well, and I want to kind of find a way to work around that. So thank you very much for watching this. This was Art 2025. I just want to say once again, thank you for joining us throughout 2025. What are your New Year's resolutions for 2026? I love New Year's resolutions, so I'm really interested. Maybe it's going to be for you guys to finally release 1 game on Steam. Maybe it's going to be also to make $1 million and build a big-ass game dev studio. I'm not really sure, but I do want to hear more about you guys, because you guys are what makes this YouTube channel worth it for me, because like I said, the revenue from YouTube, it's not really much anymore. It's like becoming like a rounding error almost on like our balance sheets, because it dropped down to like 200 euros a month, where our game sales are like 3 or 4 times that, basically, without having to put any effort into it. But it is being able to hear from you guys and talking to you guys. So for that, I say thank you. Leave me your thoughts down below, and let's make 2026 the best year we can. Bye!